So my first exposure to even the idea of an open relationship was when I was in Brisbane, Australia. I was traveling there and I had lined up a couch surfing host through couchsurfing.org. I'd read his reviews. I chose him because he was a fellow salsa dancer. And so when I got to his lovely apartment where I'd have my own room, I noticed something that was a little bit worrisome. I noticed that there were several nude photographs on the walls. Not only that, but they were bondage nudes. Black and white, like hardcore bondage, women, kind of sprawled out, arms tied behind their backs and gagged, blindfolded, just your standard kind of artwork that you want to see when you're staying with a stranger. And it ended up, he was a Frenchman and an artist and a photographer. So it actually was okay. He was not like a murderer. He wasn't out to torture me or anything. But I did get to talking with him at dinner about his relationship with his ex-wife. And he said that they had decided to open up their marriage after 10, 15 years of being together and having kids and all of that, because things had just gotten kind of boring. Like the way he explained it was, 20 years of marriage, I saw her pussy from every angle, I was like, well, at least he's honest. And so they opened up their marriage and he had a girlfriend. And I was like, oh, well, did your wife take on any lovers as well? And he's like, oh, she didn't have these needs, she was tired. So basically, he took a mistress and his wife took more naps, I guess, which actually, after 20 years of marriage, doesn't sound like that bad a deal. Probably I wouldn't mind taking naps at that point either. I don't know. I was just trying to keep an open mind. I'm still trying to keep an open mind. Welcome to Michaela Up Close, a podcast where I overshare about my personal life and have unfiltered chats with comedians and friends and some experts about all kinds of juicy topics. Today, surprise, surprise, we're going to talk a little bit about open relationships. I'll talk about that later in the podcast, and also weird kinks, because why not? It's a pandemic. Let's get into it. Let's spice things up, because certainly in my real life, things aren't that spicy, so we can just talk about things that are spicy. And of course, I'll give you an update on what's happening in my dating life or what's not happening. Because, yeah, let's face it, we're all kind of in the same boat. It's quite hard to date during a pandemic, even though things are opening up. And for a while there, I really felt like I was experiencing a drought of men. I had no men in my life besides like comedian friends, and I wasn't really dating for a while, and I was like, wow, I don't have any men in my life. And it got to the point where I went to the shoe repair shop to get my shoes fixed, and the shop owner, who was like a man in his 50s, Persian man, balding, he kind of took my breath away, to be honest. And not just because I was wearing a mask. I just was like, wow, like his arms look so strong. And I mean, he had some hair. He had a face that wasn't pixelated. That's all it takes right now. He just was so right there. And I think that's my type now. Like, man, moderately somewhat attractive and right in front of me, not on a computer screen. But also, I'd like to point out that he was an older man, somewhat older, in his 50s, because I know I've been talking a lot about dating younger men just because it's funny and interesting. But I keep an open mind. I do. I mean, I have historically dated a lot of doctors and med students, but I do meet a lot of comedians. Because I do stand-up comedy, which I got to thinking, comedians aren't that different than doctors. You just have to ask yourself, like, do I want to date someone who prescribes drugs or abuses them? Like, do I want someone who's pre-med or pre-diabetic? It's just personal preference. But some women are really, really into comedians. Like, there are male comedians getting laid after shows that would not get laid under any other circumstances. I'm talking like last two people on earth, deserted island scenarios. But somehow some women are just mesmerized by a funny man with a microphone. And it's interesting to me because there's no evolutionary reason to want to reproduce with a clown. Like, women are so into a sense of humor, but back in the Stone Ages, like, what would that have brought to the relationship? Because comedians aren't exactly known for their athleticism and bravery. I mean, that some could be, but I mean, being funny isn't going to protect you from attacks from like lions and bears. Like, imagine in the Stone Ages, if you're getting chased by a lion, what's a comedian gonna do? Like, turn to the lion like, hey, did you hear the one about the dead hooker? I don't get it. I don't. But I really do feel like, as I was saying, I am going through a drought or a dry spell, if you will, with men. And it's starting to mess with my mind, as you could tell by like my drooling over the balding shoe repair owner. Not that balding can't be, I've liked plenty of bald men. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Don't message me complaining that I'm judgmental because I was talking about bald men. It's fine. All right. But, yes, I feel like when I see men right now, every man is hotter than he actually is. It's like I'm in the desert and I'm so thirsty and delirious. I'm seeing mirages, like I think I see in the distance really sexy John Hamm, and it turns out to just be a palm tree with a big trunk. And that's how I feel with men right now. Like, I think I see a really hot, manly man, and then when I come to my senses, it's just a comedian. I'm like, nah, I'll make it work with the palm tree. That's all right. I think I told you guys a couple of episodes ago that I kind of took a break from dating because I had been using the apps during lockdown. I had been doing some video chats, and I had gone on a couple of social distance dates. And then I was like, no, I'm done with this. I'm done with online dating because I am choosing the wrong people. I just don't have the ability, I guess, to choose the right people with the very limited parameters of online dating. So I was like, okay, well, things are opening up. I'll just have to meet someone in person, if at all. But then a week ago, someone asked me out after a stand-up set. He came outside and just was very straightforward and asked me on a date, got my number, which I appreciate. I think it takes a lot of courage to ask someone out on a date, so I always appreciate that. And yeah, so I guess I'm back in the game. But to be honest, I have a lot less tolerance for dating now than I used to, because I can't remember if I've mentioned this on the podcast, but in my late 20s, mid to late 20s, I guess, I did this thing, this love experiment, I guess, where I accepted to date with anyone who asked me in person. I wasn't doing online dating. And the whole idea was to just be open and receptive to people, to men approaching me and asking me out. And these were just dates, not hooking up. So I went on a lot of first and second dates. And so I learned to just be more open and go into any date with a good attitude, drop the judgment, drop the expectations, and just be positive and make a connection on, like, I could do that with almost anyone under almost any circumstances. And I feel like the last couple of years have just beaten that right out of me. I just don't have it in me anymore. You know, like within the first 30 seconds, if you know that there's not going to be any connection, or even if you're not sure at all, sometimes like before I even see the person, I'm like, like I'm already feeling hostile. Like me dating right now is like trying to bathe a cat, you know? I'm just that grumpy cat. I'm hostile. I go in with my back up, and my overall vibe is just like, don't touch me or I will scratch your eyeballs out. And I know that that's not very attractive. It's probably not going to make men fall in love with me instantly. But actually, I mean, it's not that bad in the way, I don't think it shows that much, but that's how I feel. And also it just, in the first little bit of a date, I feel that way. But if it's someone who I am a little bit compatible with, then I kind of will soften up a little bit, I like to think. Then my true beauty and I don't know. What am I talking about? Moving on. I told you guys about a couple times about the 22-year-old on Bumble. You guys are like, shut up about the 22-year-old. I'm not done yet, okay? Not a lot's happening in my life. I'm going to milk this 22-year-old story. Because if you will remember, the 22-year-old on Bumble who I'd been messaging with, he told me after a couple of days that he was looking to find a friend to explore his sexual kinks with. To discover, actually. He wanted to discover his sexual kinks. And so basically he that's like beyond friends with benefits. He wanted buddies with bondage, I guess. Which, first of all, I think he was misusing the term friends. Like, I don't think anybody goes on Bumble BFF looking for a buddy to just casually choke. You know, I refuse to believe that shackles are the new friendship bracelets. That seems wrong to me. Also, I think it would be extremely stressful getting to know someone while also discovering your sexual kinks. Like, that first date small talk is awkward enough. Can you imagine? It's like, so what do you do for work? Do you like traveling? And do you prefer the fist to the right or to the left? I wouldn't like that. Yeah, I don't want to be in the room with someone when they discover that their kink is shoving a turtle up my butt. I'm a vegan. I would not want to do that to an innocent turtle. Maybe like a clam, because they're non-sentient, so they wouldn't feel it. Oh, but I would. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I don't want any sea creatures or shells up my butt. No, thank you. Maybe if this pandemic doesn't let up, who knows? But right now, it's not appealing to me. But I am honestly really glad that I don't have any weird kinks yet, because, they just sound exhausting to me. Exhausting. Like, can you imagine every time you get aroused, it's like, oh, better go set up the suspension cables. Got to go slip into my leather bustier. Because I've been in relationships where just getting undressed for sex seemed like too much work. I'm like, do what you want to me, but the sweatpants stay on. I also kind of worry that if I had a weird kink, it would bring out my perfectionism and I just go above and beyond, because that's how I am with things. Like, whatever my new hobby or passion or whatever the thing is, I just have to like give it my all. And I don't think that would be good with a lot of these kinks, like, can you imagine if we're just trying to do some standard, simple wizard role play and I act like I'm auditioning for Lord of the Rings? I'm like, can we do that last thing again? I don't feel like I got Gandalf's wrist flick right, And if it was BDSM, I mean, I don't know if we'd even get to the dungeon, because I'd like be too busy decorating the torture room. Like, should we go with brick red or crimson? I just want our dungeon to be cozy but modern, Like, can we get some throw pillows for that bondage bed? I also feel like BDSM could be really dangerous for someone who's like a perfectionist overachiever. Like, I'm not out to kill somebody. Oh, but it's fun. It's fun to think about these things and talk about them and research them. Of course, I had to do a lot of research, not in the field, you guys, just internet research on these kinks. Like, I hope no one ever finds or discovers what I search on Google, because I think I would be committed. I mean, when I'm writing jokes and preparing these podcasts, I definitely Google some weird shit. And this week, of course, I had to look up the weird kinks. And believe me, there are some weird ones. One of the ones that I found that I think is just kind of dumb is it's called trichophiliacs. They have a fetish for long hair. Okay, I don't think that's a kink. That's like most straight men. Let's face it. Like, I've never had a guy tell me, I wish you'd cut your hair off. Like, most guys are like, oh, I love long hair. Long hair is the best. So I don't know if I'd classify that as a kink, but maybe there's more to it. Maybe they like to do weird things to long hair or something. I don't know. Okay, another one I found that was kind of disturbing for its own reasons is people who are turned on by stealing. Okay, like, I have enough trust issues as it is. Can you imagine if you're sleeping with someone and then you have to worry not just about STDs or about opening up to someone new. You got to worry if he's going to like swipe your wallet, maybe take one of your statues. I don't know who has statues nowadays, but I just think that would be very stressful. Another one that I found interesting was people who have a fetish for mirrors. Like, they like to look at themselves while they get off. Okay, that's a red flag. Kind of reminds me of the movie American Psycho. For those of you who don't remember, the guy's a murderer. He's a psychopath. Very handsome. It's Christian Bale, young Christian Bale. So, I mean, he was hot in like a type A murderer kind of way. But his character would just look at himself in the mirror the whole time that he was having sex. And it was very disturbing. And so I don't know. I think if someone has that kink, it's not a good sign. Probably a narcissist. But I shouldn't judge. I shouldn't judge. Okay, hobophilia is when people have sexual fantasies about homeless people. First of all, everything about this is not woke. Even the name hobophilia, I don't think they like being called hobos anymore. I don't know what the politically correct term is, but yeah, I think you could get canceled, frankly, for having that fetish. So I'm going to stay away from that one. Tempting, but no. And then, okay, tripsolagniacs are people who are aroused by having their hair shampooed. So watch out, hairstylists. Can you imagine if someone orgasmed while you were just giving them a wash and cut? That would be very awkward. I actually got my hair cut last week, and I was thinking while she was shampooing my hair, this is the most I've been touched since lockdown, pretty much. I mean, but I wasn't turned on, I swear. Sophia, if you're listening to this, I did not get aroused, okay? Did feel nice though. Okay, and then there are people actually who get turned on by teddy bears, like just your run-of-the-mill teddy bears. And I think that's just loneliness, maybe. Doesn't that sound more like loneliness than a fetish? To me, it does. Maybe I'm biased because I started sleeping with teddy bears midway through lockdown, like the darkest point of lockdown. I was like, I need my teddy bears. But I never felt like jumping Teddy's bones. Didn't get to that point, thankfully. Okay, and then there are people who get turned on by seeing someone fall downstairs. That also seems like a red flag kink. Like if someone says they want to push you down the stairs, I think they hate you and they want to kill you. I don't think that's sexual. I think that's just an excuse for being a murderer. I say as I laugh. Like, it's really weird talking about these things by myself and just laughing. I don't know. Feels twisted. Anyways, I caught up with one of my very good friends, Natalia Delgado, earlier this week. She is so smart and interesting and funny. She has her PhD in art education. She's a fiery Latina and she's a longtime friend of mine. So we get into it. We tell some stories, some fun stories. We talk about open relationships and I share more about my honest thoughts on that and just different kinds of relationships in general and dating and some of Natalia's strange adventures involving nudity and thousands of people. You'll know what I mean when you listen to the conversation. So here's that chat. So first of all, do you remember how we first met or when we first met?
When we first met, I think it was at the salsa event in Victoria.
It had to have been at salsa.
Yes. What I remember a lot was that the twins had a huge crush on you. And and so I knew more of you because of that, because they were like, oh, she's so beautiful. And then like I didn't really know anything else about you other than that. And then I think you had just broken up with your boyfriend, who I knew a little bit more.
Okay, that makes so much sense because I was thinking about it. Yeah. My first memory of you is at like the salsa event that was, you had to go up a lot of stairs to get to, like a weekly dance night.
Yes, downtown. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember you were wearing like a sexy red dress because it was salsa.
Yeah.
And you're Natalia, super fiery and like, hey, hello, who are you?
Yes, and I think because you had broken up with your boyfriend, like you were sort of like trying to find new groups of friends because everyone else was kind of like from the same salsa group.
Oh, that makes so much sense because yeah, like I remember that. And then all of a sudden we were like best friends. We did everything
Really
together.
fast, yeah.
We rushed into it.
It was a passionate encounter.
It was indeed. But so I know that when we were living in Victoria, you were single, you were living it up,
Yeah.
but not too long before that, you were married. So how did you get from being like married in Mexico to being single in Victoria?
Well, it pretty much ended at the same time. Like I think when I met you, I must have been just very recently separated because I didn't divorce until many years later, but separated. I separated like 6 months after I've moved to Canada, and so by the time I met you, um, I was like recently single as well.
That makes sense. Yes, because you were like very enthusiastic, and that's what you do after a divorce or a breakup. You dance salsa. That's what everyone does.
Well, I had been in a relationship since I was super young. Like I started with my husband when he was my boyfriend back then, since I was like, I think it was 20 years old. So I was with
So
him all of
young.
my 20s. And then so after I broke up, it was kind of like sort of like what you usually go through in your 20s. I was going through in my 30s because I had never been single. Um,
Mm.
During like the age when most people are single. So I kind of did it backwards. Like I was, most people go crazy during their 20s and then they kind of like marry in their 30s. And I was like super steady relationship in my 20s, and then just kind of going crazy single in my 30s.
That's so interesting because, yeah, we really were like in the same place in life because I had been married at 20 and it was very short and we'd split up a couple of years ago, but I was still kind of, yeah, experiencing that whole being single in your 20s. And so, how did that feel for you being newly single in your 30s? Like, how did you feel?
I think it was both scary and but also like exhilarating in a way, and because it's both sides of a breakup, right? Like on one side, it's the pain of like the loss and just that connection that you have. So that takes a lot of time to actually like heal. Like I would say, it would take me a lot of years to actually heal from that. And then on the other side is like the fun, exciting. I was like I'm like a monogamist. I was like faithful throughout all my marriage. So just like had like the opportunity of like, oh, I can be with other people now. That's exciting. And so that was like the fun part of it for sure.
We
And
had so much fun too.
yes, and I think dancing also it's really good because it allows you to meet people in like a healthy, wholesome way. So you get to interact with men, but it's not like at a club, where they're like trying to sleep with you or all these other contexts where it just doesn't, like you don't get to meet as many people in such a healthy way. So I think that's what I really enjoyed about the dancing, that it was just like
Mm,
interacting with men, but it wasn't sexual. It was just like, almost like energy, like you're meeting someone
yes.
else's energy. And with some people, like you really flow really well. And with other people, you don't flow as well. And it's a different kind of connection. So that I hadn't experienced before. And
Yeah.
so I really like that.
I agree. Yeah, that's something that I don't often I'm not able to express a lot to people is that salsa is so sexy and especially, when you're like wearing the sexy outfits and me like when I performed, I would wear like next to nothing.
You took it really far with the samba, I think. Like
Oh,
when you were
the thong, yes.
salsa was still more covered up, but once you went into the samba, then you like fully on.
Yeah. It's so true, but you feel more clothed because you're wearing fishnet stockings. It's like, no, you're not.
And
But
it's
yeah,
really, I mean, nudeness. I find that it's relative, because when I was in Europe, like in Barcelona, you're allowed to be topless at the beach, and so everyone's like kind of naked. And then when I was in Barcelona, I did this nude installation with the
yeah.
photographer Spencer Tunick, and like there's like, I don't know, like thousands of people naked. And then once you're in the middle of 1,000 people naked, you're like, oh, whatever, like you're self-conscious for the first 2 minutes, and then afterwards you're just like, oh, like this is really just like uh I guess social standards.
But did you ever feel like during that naked parade, did you feel like you were in a dream?
uh no, it felt really weird. Like it was in the like in the big park. I think it was like 5,000 people. So the weirdest moment was like they put us all in a warehouse and we're clothed. And then at some point he gave us all the instructions, and at some point he's like, okay, now take off your clothes. And that moment is where you like feel like that rush of adrenaline, like, am I really doing this? And then like the moment you take them off and you turn around and like there's so much flesh around you that is just, it just becomes like you can't really even focus on anyone because it's just like a crowd of naked people. So that took away that part, so it was just like the transition from clothing to nude. And the one thing, and actually it was funny because like I think there was like a person who was like assisting or something, and he was clothed, and everybody was like, take your clothes off and so on. So he was like the naked one in the middle of all the naked people, because he was like the one that stood out, So I think that was interesting to see, sort of like a inverse world
it makes
situation.
It makes you think that in a dystopian world, because we both like dystopian stuff, then like if suddenly we all had to be naked, I think we would adjust very quickly then.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I said when you were saying like about the sexual kinks and so on, I was thinking about the like it's really about what's different from society that stands out, right? So if it was like a dystopian world where everyone's naked, then the one that would be like the weird one and shamed and criticized, it would be the one that's clothed. And and if it was like you were supposed to wear whatever giant hats, and then if you're wearing a small hat, so it's always about social agreements, I think.
Social agreements, exactly. Yes, that's so true. So okay, before we move on, I'm sure other people are curious, like what was the result of that art thing? Like what happened in the end?
So, well, he took the picture, and I actually have a copy here in my house. And I think for me, it was just like understanding a different, like kind of like realizing I was really young when I did it. So it was just kind of realizing like what I'm comfortable with or not. So like with him, because he was like, I really respect his work, and I don't think there's anything like that makes me uncomfortable about it. It was just like very artistic, and the whole philosophy behind it, I could stand behind. So I was comfortable doing it, but in other contexts, I wouldn't be. So I think that I learned that about myself.
Yes. I don't know if I've seen that picture.
No, I don't think you have. I have to show you.
Can you actually see yourself?
Oh no, I'm like a tiny little whatever dot.
I think that's so cool that you did that.
Because I remember that there was like when we were inside the warehouse, there were like the news people were taking pictures for the newspaper, and that I was like hiding behind my boyfriend, because I was like, I don't that's not artistic. That's just sensationalistic, So that was a big difference for me. Like you have to really connect with like what it is about, and like I really respected the artist, not the news people who were covering the event.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of artists, you've dated, like your ex-husband was an artist, and you seem to be attracted to creative guys.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like your taste in men has changed a lot. So take me through like how your taste in men has changed from like when you were married to like our time when we first became friends to now.
Oh, that's a difficult question. Well, he wasn't an artist; he was a designer. But
that's it. I count that as an artist.
And when we met, we were in university, so he was older than me. So it was kind of like that, sort of admiring, the older student, and he
How much
was
older?
like, he was like, he's only like 3 years older than me, but in school he would have been like almost about to graduate, and I was kind of like just starting.
Okay.
So in terms of design, he was like miles ahead of me back then. Because when you're starting school, you're just starting to learn, and And by the time you're about to graduate it, you've kind of mastered whatever you're supposed to learn at school.
Mm-hmm.
And but what I think for me, the constant is that it's always smart people. Like whenever I'm attracted to someone is because they're like intelligent somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that I admire about them. And it's been like so if you look at the men that I've liked, you're like, oh, they have nothing in common with each other. but they do have like that element that maybe I'll admire the way they dance, or I'll admire the way they do design, or that they write, or that they engage in their job. There's always something that I admire. And then there's always sort of like, I feel that all the people that I've been involved with are very discreet and trustworthy like that. And so I haven't really experienced any kind of like betrayal, or someone going behind my back. And like once you start talking to other people, you hear all these horrible stories. So I think that has been good. But but that's like the one thing that ties them together. And then other than that, I really like, I've been with younger guys and older guys, and dancers and designers, and all different sorts of professions and personalities, and physically completely different.
Yes,
so
physically.
So you would be like, what's going on here? But it is more of that constant of conversation is really important for me. So it's always people that I can have great conversations with. And
that makes sense.
And then just like the fact that they are trustworthy, and that's something that I admire.
Yeah, because you have your PhD, but the thing that I like about you, and that I think made it easy for us to be friends, is that you're not pretentious. Like you're obviously very intelligent, and when we get into it, we can have these kind of interesting philosophical conversations and talk about relationships and therapy stuff. But you're not like some PhD people are like very pretentious. Actually, I wanted to tell you. So last year I went on a couple dates with this guy who's a doctor.
Okay.
And I did like him actually, but he was like one of those types that's like, education is everything, I think. And he's like very passionate about his work. And I mentioned that I visited you. I'm like, yeah, I went to Just for Laughs with my friend in Montreal. She has her PhD. And he was like, oh, he got all excited. He's like, oh, she has her PhD? And in what? And his eyes lit up. I'm like, sorry, I don't have a PhD. Jeez.
Oh, no. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I felt bad.
It is. I remember that with a friend of mine in Victoria. They used to say that, like, his dad would be like, oh, your friend has a PhD. And his dad would get super excited. Like that was like such a good influence for him or something. And but I think that I was telling this I don't know if you remember this girl Erin from Salsa. I met her once in Mexico City, and we went for tacos, and we were talking about movies or something, that movies that represented our lives. And then I said like, oh, I feel so like I identify with the Legally Blonde movie. And she was horrified. She's like, no, how can that be? That's such a like because she's a bimbo and she's all that. And I was like, no, but like she's actually really smart. She seems kind of ditzy, but she's really smart. And she's really kind. And I like how she's like pursuing this guy, but actually finds herself, and like finds this passion for the law. And she was like not having it. She's like, no, Natalia, that cannot be the movie that you identify with. And I think totally it's because of that, because it's like that PhD cliche, where it's just like, oh no, you have to be like some pretentious film or something.
That's true. And it happens, let's face it, like not necessarily with us, you need someone to have a PhD, but this is what happens in dating. Like we judge each other based on, like the resume, the dating resume, which can be, it kind of grosses you out. Like even in myself, I'm like, I'm getting judgmental. Like I need to cool it, take a time out.
I think it's because, because I was thinking about that. I was talking about that with someone recently, where I was saying like the problem that I find with the dating apps is that because you're already there to find like to date, but you've never met before, it's like you of course you're gonna judge, right? Because you have to like jump all this natural steps that you would have when you meet someone organically. Like you wouldn't be like, oh hello, what's my name, oh what, and like you want to have children, you would be like talking about, like if you meet someone at a party, you would be talking about the things you like, and maybe you would meet again, and maybe you would go for a movie, and there would be like a lot of time. And I think even that fact that you're not sure if they like you or not helps, because you can sort of be like friends or be just like flow better. And I think the dating site just like takes that away, so you have to be like really into it, because like neither of you is there to be friends, and that possibility is not present. And so I think it kills a lot of that flow, and it makes it harder. And I definitely enjoy more like meeting organically. I like a million times. And now I'm really sad because with COVID it's just getting more and more complicated.
It is. Yeah. So I know that you're being pretty cautious.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of following the rules. I'm not doing extra. Like I'll go to patios, and I've done a couple of stand-up shows. And I made a declaration. I was like, I am not doing online dating anymore for a while. Like, it's not working for me. I told the universe, you're just going to have to send me someone in person. I know it's a pandemic, but you're just going to have to, send me someone. And I did get asked out after my show last week. Oh. I don't think I told you that.
No.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So the secret to getting a date during pandemic times is just tell a bunch of jokes about your vagina on stage.
I don't know. Would you have to tell me how that works out?
I know.
After the date. But
well, it's worked before, actually. It's happened before where someone's like heard me tell a bunch of jokes, and like not like a bunch of jokes about my vagina, but a couple. And then like they've asked me out. It's only happened once before, but they were both all right.
For sure. I think it shows like they can obviously physically attract it, but also like they can see your sense of humor, and it takes a lot of effort to write jokes, like so that shows a lot of like your intelligence as well, and so that's something that they can connect with, right? Because they can see like, oh, she can think, she can come up with all these clever ideas. So I think that's attractive as well. I think sometimes we don't give men enough credit, and we're like think that they're like super shallow, but I think that they do connect with those kinds of things, like if the sense of humor, the intelligence, and I think that even though it's more common that the woman admires the men, I think that men also want to admire the woman that they date.
That's true. I do underestimate that. Or I just think like men admire women for things like everything opposite me.
No.
Like having a PhD or being blonde.
I think PhD is actually more of a turnoff for a lot of them. Like it's kind of the kind of thing that they would intimidate a lot of people.
Come to Ottawa though. I think they like it in Ottawa.
Well, maybe I need to try that. But no, I think it's because what you were saying, like a lot of people assume that it's like pretentious, or that you have that you only date other people with PhDs or things like that,
Yeah.
And definitely don't think, like, I wouldn't want to be defined just by that. And so I definitely don't put it on my dating websites and stuff.
Oh, you don't?
No, not really. Like, unless they ask you for your education level, like postgraduate or whatever. But no, I wouldn't put like, oh, I'm a PhD, this and that, because I don't find that it's a central part of my existence,
Yeah.
So,
it doesn't like tell you in a snapshot. It doesn't say enough about you. It's like me putting I'm an introvert on my dating profile. I actually don't. You'd think I would because I have a whole business dedicated to it, but it's too much of like people take that as everything. That's like all of you. And you're like, no, I'm not the stereotype. So let me just meet you in person and you can figure out who I am.
Exactly. And I think especially looking for a partner, like it doesn't matter if the partner has a PhD or not. So I think like it's more important, like, are they caring? Are they loyal? Are they going to be someone who's like going to be your best friend? Are they going to support you? Those kind of things is what matters. Not really if they have a PhD or a business or they sell hot dogs or whatever it is that they want to do with with their lives. Because I
Would
think
you
it's more
date someone who sold hot dogs?
absolutely.
Oh, nice, confident answer. That's good. Okay, so we had talked a few days ago about how you think you know what my dating problem is,
Yes,
my stumbling block. Can you explain what it is?
I have figured it all out, Michaela. Uh, as I was saying, and now I remember the words dichotomy. Dichotomy. You have a
Ooh,
dichotomy. Is it dichotomy or dichotomy? I don't know. I'm Mexican.
dichotomous?
I'm Mexican, by the way. We should have started with that. I'm sorry for my pronunciation. Like I think it's called dichotomy, which is when you only see you only see two options,
Hmm.
and like you put them on the opposite sides. And so I was telling you, like, when you describe your dating, it was either I'm gonna be married in a house with a white picket fence. I'm gonna wear my apron, bake cookies, and take the golden retriever for a walk, or I'm gonna be single forever. And I was like, well, what's up with all the options in the middle? Because you can have like all sorts of different types of like relationships, and it can be like you can both be working and you can both be creative. And I've met all kinds of arrangements. I've met couples who live in different houses, like all sorts of different humans getting together. So when I was listening to your previous podcast, I was like, no, but she's always going to like this super traditional view, or single. So of course she's gonna choose single because that's like either a housewife in the 50s or
It's so true. I don't know. I thought about it more. I'm like, that's true. Like, obviously, on a surface level, I do know there's tons of options, but probably at a subconscious level, and what I say in my podcast, clearly, it's like, because I was so religious for so long, I think it was so ingrained in me that that's what marriage was.
Mhm.
And I haven't seen like the ideal picture of how I'd want my relationship to be. Like, what would you want your relationship to look like?
Definitely someone that I think like the dancing is a great example because when you do the first lessons of dancing, you do that thing where you're like holding each other's arms, and you're not supposed to like push the other person or pull the other person, but just kind of like hold each
Mm.
other's energy. So I would want that in a relationship where it's like we can hold each other's energy. Like I think the energies have to match. You can't have someone who like dominates and or someone who's just too much of a pushover. So it has to be
Hmm.
someone that matches my energy.
I feel like from what I've seen, um, people who seem like they'd be the best partners are people who had like really solid upbringings, who are just, naturally securely attached, and they just have those communication skills already, and they just know how to make a relationship work. Or
Mhm.
the people who, like, for whatever reason, they've had to learn these skills for work, like maybe social worker, or people in psychology, doctors, where they have to learn communication skills, they have to learn to be self-aware. And
Mhm.
then, like, I find that works really well. But like the old model of just like, oh, you just kind of do it and you just go through life, you never like look into yourself. Or I don't think I could be with someone who's like that. And I definitely don't, I'm not the one who has like the natural relationship skills. And I definitely know a lot of my flaws that I'm bringing and my weaknesses. But I luckily I've had to do a lot of work and learn communication skills. So I think
Mhm.
if I was with someone who also did that, then it would help. Do you think that you would ever do an open relationship?
Not with COVID.
Yeah.
Not. I was
Good point.
talking about that with the other guy who's polyamorous the other day, and I was like, oh my god, COVID is like the worst for you guys. But
Hmm.
it's interesting because I was listening to this podcast, and I thought it was fascinating because the guy was saying like if you look at like the really successful rich people, they
Hmm.
all had like these super solid marriages, and
Oh.
it was like kind of like this teamwork that got them there. And maybe they got divorced once they were like super successful, but on their path there, they were not like sleeping around or whatever. They were like in steady relationships. And I do believe that, like, I think once you have this partnership for whatever time it is, it really makes you stronger. So I don't buy into the whole polyamorous thing because of that, because I feel like you don't get that full on connection. It's kind of like a little bit of connection, but not that sort of like synergy that really, I think it creates like a stronger version. Like if you're both strong separately, then you're stronger together.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't think I would. I consider it at times, just because of what I was saying, that I do not like to be at just because someone says it is, I don't necessarily accept it. So growing up, I was thinking like, well, like all these things that you explore in your life. And one thing that I do believe is that what's right for you might not be right for me. So
Yeah.
I never judge. I know people who are in polyamorous relationships and they're pretty happy, but I know, like, for me, it wouldn't work.
Yeah. I don't think at this point I would. Who knows? Because usually people do it after several years of marriage. They open up their marriage. They're not polyamorous. Like, they're polyamorous in a different way. They like open their marriage and then they have different rules that they have. I don't know. But I've seen go back. Like, I've seen that backfire for sure.
I've seen so many on the Quebec dating apps. I swear, like, out of 5 people, 3 are open marriages, or couples on Tinder, which I found very interesting, because that was not like, I'm being Mexican. This is not there. There is a lot of it in Mexico once you know about it. Because I have a friend who is like that in an open marriage, but it's super underground.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like here where you're like, oh yeah, I'm a, what was it that I met the other day? A non-ethical monogamist. I was like, what's that?
An ethical monogamous? Yes, yes.
Yeah, and no,
non-ethical non-monogamous.
Non-ethical, no. Ethical non-monogamous, yes.
Yes. I see that too.
And I was like, oh my God, you have such a scientific name for it. Like, it sounds so fancy.
Yes, basically I sleep with whoever.
Yeah. But it sounds so much more exotic when you say it like that.
Yes. So my thoughts on it are that I'm not really interested. Like, I don't think that I would want to sleep with enough people for, like, I have enough trouble finding one person that I want to sleep with. That's the thing. That's why it's different for everyone, because like I feel uncomfortable, like, at the stage when you start to sleep with someone. I really don't enjoy that whole like part of getting to know someone. Like, I'd rather just jump to where you feel really comfortable. And to go through that, like, more than you need to, and actually find other people you want to sleep with, like, no. And it has to be and intimacy is a big thing, which I know in polyamorous relationships, like, it is intimacy too. It's not just sex. Mm-hmm. But there's just not that many people I want to be intimate with.
Yeah.
So have you had anyone on the apps, or I don't know, any requests for people wanting you to like have a threesome or explore kinks or anything like that?
No, because I don't how you say, like like have to like heart or whatever. So no, I haven't had any dirty propositions.
No, but okay, because like in my life, I mean, I was always sort of innocent. Even in my 20s when we were salsa dancing, I think people who got to know me could tell, like, I'm not like a kinky type. Yeah. But I did, like, a couple of times have people who were a couple invite me to be with them, Yeah. Like, has that ever happened to you?
No, but I think you're much more approachable than I am.
What makes you say that?
Because I'm always like super guarded, and will not open up easily. Like, even the fact that I'm in this podcast is such a big accomplishment. But and I think you're much more open to share, like, even like you're saying, like, jokes about your vagina, or share stuff about your life. And I think that sort of people feel more comfortable, and maybe think, like, not necessarily that you would do it, but like at least they feel like enough. They feel comfortable enough to ask.
That's interesting, because to me, you always seem like the more, like, you're bold, you're confident, you're more like talkative, Like I would
Yes.
think people would perceive you as the more open one and you're like more sensual, I think. Like, you know, you're more, you seem more like sexually open.
That's hilarious. I'm thinking of like the people who are listening to the podcast and they're just building this image. You know?
No, but you're also, they can hear it in your voice. Like you're fiery Latina. You're very open-minded. You like were part of this naked art installation. Like obviously.
Yes, it's true. Then I do not know why I have not been propositioned.
You will now. It's out there.
What am I doing wrong, Mika?
Oh my gosh. Well, actually, you know, I don't know if you saw, I posted it on social media that I had in my dating profile a unicorn.
Yes, so was that like a polyamorous thing?
The unicorn emoji actually means like, because a unicorn is the girl that comes into a couple relationship for sex.
There you go. And now you're wondering why they ask you.
Yeah, exactly. Online, like everyone's looking for a unicorn. Those couples, they all want a unicorn. They're never looking for, well, not never, but they're usually not looking for like a man to bring in. They're often looking for a woman. But yeah, this was before. Actually, these people propositioning me was before the unicorn. But I did get like someone who was, I've talked about this already in the podcast, but someone who was looking to explore his kinks, but he really like eased his way in, you know, he acted all normal and nerdy and asked me like really normal questions to begin with. And then all of a sudden he's like, what are you looking for? And I gave a normal answer. And then he's like, well, I'm looking to explore my sexual kinks.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, I've never had I've had a lot of, obviously, like a lot of propositions from men, uncomfortable propositions, and but like, I don't know, like at a bar or something like that, but you just kind of like tell them to no, and but I never had that with a couple. No.
Okay. Yeah, but hey, you know what? It might actually be a personality thing, because probably couples kind of have something in mind where they're looking for someone who seems like a little more submissive, like
I don't know.
This is in my 20s. So
it's true. This is true. You were a little bit more quiet. You've become more let's say, out there over the years.
Yeah, but still, if you meet me in person, you probably, I don't lead with the vagina jokes. I'm not like, hey, nice to meet you. So have I told you about my vulva?
No, actually, it's true. It's true. If at like at a parties or stuff, you're much more quieter.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think is something that people misunderstand about you?
I think that what you're saying, like people, because I'm really friendly. I always say I'm like a golden retriever. I'm really friendly, so I love talking. I love talking to people. I'm super open. I'm not judgmental, so I can talk about all kinds of topics. And I think sometimes people mistakenly think that I'm like super open, either sexually or emotionally, and I'm not. I'm actually super shy. Like I rarely share things about my private life. It takes me a long time to actually like get intimate with someone, and I mean, not a long time, but like it takes a while, and it takes getting to know them. And I think a lot of the times people think like, oh, she must be like super sexual because she was like on this naked thing, or because for the way I look, or whatever. And I'm actually much more shy. I don't know if shy is the word, but like private in many of areas of my life. But I'm just like, I think it's because I'm not judgmental that people like, I could talk to you about polyamory. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna ever do it, you know. But
Yes.
I love learning about stuff, and I love talking to people and just like knowing about like how they do their lives and all these different ways that humans can choose to live their lives. So
that's true.
So I think that would be the misconception.
I was thinking the other day, maybe it was like not the last time we talked, but the time before that, I was like, yeah, you're like probably the least judgmental. I mean, most of my friends are not judgmental, but like, I really feel you're not judgmental. Like, I feel like I could talk to you about, certain things that, other people are going to be like, what are you doing? Like, don't even think that, don't even say that. I just know that you'd be like, oh, interesting. Like, you just ask a question probably.
Yes.
If I were to say like, oh, I'm thinking of being a unicorn. You'd be like, oh, interesting. How did that come up? Like,
Yes. I have the little therapist in me. How did that make you feel?
whereas other people would be like, is everything okay? Yeah. Although people listening to the podcast maybe wouldn't be surprised.
Nothing surprises me with you anymore, Michaela.
Okay, so time for some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So what's one thing that you would tell your 18-year-old self?
It's rapid fire, and I'm gonna think about it for like 3 hours. I would I would tell myself that it's all gonna be okay.
It's all going to be okay. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Or
chill out. Don't worry. It all works out.
I think you probably still need to tell yourself that now, right?
All the time. every time, like my 50-year-old self tells me that, and there's science about it now, that there's the possibility that they actually exist, all these cells, so it does. So they say it actually does help if you tell yourself, like, your past self and your future self stuff.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Like, it does affect your past.
Yeah, if you go into like the deep quantum physics stuff, there are some theories about it we're supposedly existing in multiple, there's not such thing as the fixed time. So you exist in like your past, present, and future are all kind of continuous. So you can communicate with the other versions. It's interesting.
Yeah, I could believe that. I'm like open to anything. I kind of believe that this is a hologram. But if you believe this is a hologram, then you kind of believe everything, because then you could believe in religion too, because it's like it's is all true. Just whatever you believe is true is true. Okay, so if you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I think first one would be Oprah.
Oh yeah.
And just because I find her story very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would choose dead or alive, other than Oprah, which is always my first. They asked me this question before, but only for one person. So I would say Oprah, and then I would want to maybe talk to my future self.
That is a funny answer, actually. Oprah and me and me.
Oprah, my future self, and probably my grandmother, because she's passed. Aww. And it would be really nice to see her again.
Yeah, that's cool. That's actually, the me answer is actually kind of like it shows your view of, you make the leap, right? Like you color outside the lines.
Who could tell me more interesting stuff than my future self, that's relevant to my life?
That's true. Actually, I would pick that too if that were an option. Possibly. I might be freaked out. Like, I don't know if I want to know. I might be like, oh, that's what I look like when I'm 60. Damn it. What's all this yoga for, man?
But you can make the changes now. See, it would be the most useful one.
That's true. Okay. What is one of your secret skills or talents?
Secret. Well, depends. Like, dancing is not so secret for some of my friends, but it's secret for everyone who knows me professionally. And then I'm like a cat dog whisperer. I'm really good with animals.
You are. That's true. But I don't know if that's a secret either.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if I don't have that many secrets. But if you don't know me so well, yes.
So for all of you, if you ever meet Natalia, like, don't go to a park with her, because you'll be stopping every 10 meters to pet a dog.
Yes.
And what's the last show you binged?
I've been binging Lucifer.
Right. The like woke devil.
Yes. This was had been recommended to me by a bunch of different people, and it's not my usual type of show. I'm much more into sci-fi, but it's pretty funny, so I've been enjoying it a lot.
Okay. And describe your ideal first date.
I think my ideal first date would happen after many non-dates. where I get to know the person, and then we would actually be at a point where we want to explore, the romantic side, and then pretty much just like going. I think I really, like I said, I really like conversations. So just going for like a walk and talking, and or for coffee and talking.
I like that. Yeah, I agree. Like someone that you already kind of know before you go on a romantic date. And guess what the next question is?
Yes. Is it our super top secret question?
Yes, we created this question together, and I'm sorry that I gave away.
That you have now given away on the podcast.
I've given away the reason, but this time I'm not going to say why we asked this question. But if a zombie apocalypse were to break out right now, right where you are, what is your course of action?
It's still the same as before. So it would be to build alliances and search for the cure.
Search for the cure. Like you would search for the cure, or your alliance people?
I think part of my alliance people, because if the cure is like medical, scientific, I don't know, that it might take me a lot longer. So I probably would like be more about strategic alliances. But if all hope is lost, then I will cram on the chemistry books and do it myself.
But you could also, if the cure was like a monkey, where you just need the monkey's blood, like an outbreak, you could do that. Exactly. You would find that monkey.
Or what if it's like a super new age zombie apocalypse, and it's all about like the energy, and we all meditate and just like good vibe the zombies away.
That's totally, that's the millennial apocalypse. We meditated away.
Exactly.
We raised our vibration.
There you go. Manifest it away, Michaela.
Yes, manifest it. Okay, and finally, what do you want your tombstone to say?
The date as far away as possible, and she.
No one said that before.
She died at 120 years old after living a wonderful, inspiring life.
Nice and simple. And 120, man, that's a long time.
Yes.
Your boobs are going to be down to your knees by then.
Technology will take care of that, Michaela. I have faith in technology.
So do you want people to follow you? Where do you want people to find you?
I think the easiest way would be my website, nataliadelgado.com.
Okay. Well, it was great talking to you as always.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This was definitely out of my comfort zone and experience. I'm really happy that I got to chat with you here.
That concludes another episode of Michaela Up Close. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then please do give me a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe wherever you're listening. All right, I'll catch you in the next episode.